Hello, I'm Graham Holbert with Tula Consulting, and welcome back to the video series defining the landscape of neurodiversity. So in our first video, we defined neurodiversity and neurotypical, and in this next video, we're going to define the remaining three terms: neurodivergent, neuroidentity, and neuroinclusion. We're going to use similar format to last time, so we're going to read out the definitions, and then we're going to talk about it using statistical tool in a more visual way. So, neurodivergent is also referred to as neurodistinct or neuroatypical, although I hear that one less. I hear more often now some individuals describe themselves as neurospicy, which I like that one. So this refers to individuals who have a less than typical cognitive variation, meaning something such as autism, ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, and many others that are out there that we're not going to dive into all of the different terms today. So next term, neuroidentity. So neurodistinct individuals might choose to identify with their neurodistinct, neurodivergent condition. I use condition for lack of a better word here, such as I am autistic or I am dyslexic. Alternatively, they could also might prefer to describe themselves as someone with dyslexia or someone who is autistic. That is identity first versus person first, sort of vernacular, the way we categorize that. And whilst many individuals like identity first, so they choose to identify as it, like I am autistic, some might prefer to say I am someone with autism. And the point here is either way, that's their personal choice, and you can respect that by referring to them in the same way that they choose to refer to themselves. So the final term here is neuroinclusion. So this is in the landscape of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Neuroinclusion is a word that can be used to describe the practice of working towards an environment or culture that is inclusive for all thinking and feeling types, and one that isn't rooted in neurotypical, neuromajority assumptions. So there's our definitions written out. Let's use our statistical tool we talked about last video, this bell curve here defining the landscape of neurodiversity. So we've got the full continuum of the way we feel and think and show up in society. On the bottom x-axis, that's neurodiversity, and then how many people think and feel in that similar way on the y-axis. So you can see here in the middle is our neurotypical neuromajority that we defined last video. And now we're going to talk more about what happens when you think and feel in a way that is significantly different to the way the majority of the population thinks and feels. And that's where the term neurodivergent comes in. And what happens when you're interacting in a world that is built around assumptions that we all think and feel in the same way, that our brains are somehow all alike, is that if you think and feel in a way that's much different to that majority or significantly different, it can impact your well-being. It can make it harder for you to show up, harder for you to succeed. So there's two ways to look at this. So the first is kind of what we really focus and center on at Tula, which is the social model of disability, which says the way we build our society, the way we build our practices, our culture, our processes, our expectations, can be disabling for those who are neurodivergent. It's the environment around the individual that disables them rather than the individual themselves that is disabled. So another way to look at it, and it's a way that's been looked at for the majority of our sort of historical past, looking at these different terms within neurodiversity, is the medical model. And that is the way it's the individuals that show up who are neurodivergent. They have a set of diagnostic criteria that they meet that categorizes them as disabled through all the various different labels, right? So those labels are here. And what we're talking about is labels such as ADHD, autism, bipolar disorder, dyslexia, or obsessive compulsive disorder, and others, Tourette's and PTSD. These things all can fall within the landscape of neurodiversity. But the point here in the medical model is that they carved out different traits and characteristics that show up more commonly together and called them, this one's ADHD, this one's autism. And the reason they did this was so that they could support and try to help and treat the individuals who have those conditions, who have those traits. So that's where all these terms came from. It's got a more medical, clinical way of looking at it. But it's important to note what we landed on at the end of the last video is that what we're looking at here is normal distribution, right? So all the different ways we show up and think and feel in the world, that all falls under normal distribution. It is part of the natural distribution of the way we think and feel. So that is why we have this term neuroinclusion. When we work towards making our cultures, making our work practices, making our expectations more inclusive of all the different ways people can think and feel, we are building a neuroinclusive environment. So that's neuroinclusion. That's why it's so important to Tula, is that if we work to build this kind of universal set of expectations, understanding within our work, within society, within wherever environment we find ourselves in, we're actually helping support the full breadth of the neurodiversity continuum. And that's why Tula and our logo is the bell curve here, wrapped up and supported within the full circle of a brain. So that's it. That's our definition of neurodiversity and the landscape of neurodiversity, the 5 kind of key terms in there, and I think I threw a few more in for you. If you're curious about how to be more neuroinclusive, about how to assess whether your organization is neuroinclusive, or where it can improve, or just learn more about neurodiversity, get in touch. We'd love to hear from you, and yeah, always excited to talk to curious people.